Hey guys, how's it going? It's your boy Luke here for our DFS live stream for Sunday at the Bermuda Championship. Just going to check on our hardware. Looks like the live stream's up. Looks like we're good to go. What we're going to do in this live stream is we're going to talk about our player pool for tomorrow. Of course, our favorite players, obviously the type of skill set we expect for success. And we're going to start off with some weather because for tomorrow is going to have a huge impact on who we are going to be targeting. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here, tell you exactly what I'm talking about. So they're going to be teeing off a little bit early because they expect some heavy thunderstorms in the afternoon. But that does not mean that we are immune from that throughout the day. There's going to be thunderstorms throughout the day, tons of weather. So you see, I have this for Southampton over in Bermuda, which is just a few miles away from the golf course. And you can see as early as 8 a.m., they're teeing off at 7:45 a.m. local time there. You already have 13 to 17 mile an hour winds, a 51% chance of thunderstorms, which means we might even have play delayed by some time. Over at 9 a.m., we still have heavy winds, though less a chance of thunderstorms. Over here at 10 a.m., still very strong winds. And we're going to have everyone off by 10 a.m. local time there. So everyone's going to be playing in some of these really bad conditions. And you can see it's going to last essentially throughout the day. So gusts getting even stronger as early as 2 p.m. And by the time that they'll be finishing up, they hope to finish by 3 or 4 p.m. Again, the thunderstorms likely to delay things up to 15, 20 miles an hour. You can see the reason why they're trying to tee off a little bit early is because of these thunderstorms here at 2, 3 p.m. because the winds are going to stay up. They might have to delay play into Monday, which would be a little bit annoying, but that's what we're dealing with for tomorrow. So as a result, for that slate, I'm looking for guys that are a little bit better around the green, people that are better at getting up and down, people that are more accurate off the tee, people that are a little bit more precise, rather than some of the scores that we've been looking at, especially for the slate yesterday. We're looking at a lot of the bombers today, people like Taylor Pendrick that went out and had a very good round. Just people at the top like Danny Lee that were also scores. They obviously went out, had very good rounds today. That's not going to be the case for tomorrow. I'm looking for people that can kind of keep their rounds together. I'm expecting an average score well over par again. Something kind of like what we saw on day one. Probably something a little bit easier than what we saw in the morning that day, but a little bit harder than what we saw in the afternoon. So something like a stroke and a half over par, that kind of thing. You're looking for about 40, maybe 45 fantasy points from a player tomorrow to really end up paying off for fantasy. So with that being said, let's hop into the player pool. There's going to be quite a bit of game theory involved with this as well, because obviously whenever you're playing Sunday Showdown, you have placement points involved. So if we're going through the player pool, we're going to start by finishing position. That way we can see some of the values in terms of their price tag, talk about who's going to be chalk, so on and so forth. So at the top of the board, anytime you have guys in the $7,000 range that are in the top 5, that kind of thing, people try to like lock in those placement points. A lot of times that's not the optimal strategy. Unfortunately for tomorrow, with the lack of scoring, it's going to be even more so important to have these placement points. So Danny Lee, Lucas Herbert, going to be extremely chalky tomorrow. But in my opinion, probably you want to have both of them in your lineups because they're going to be locked in for at least 5 to 10 extra points. And we're only looking at 40, maybe 45 fantasy points being the optimal score. So getting by with some pars, putting up a few birdies, 2 or 3 tomorrow is going to be enough, especially if you're one of these guys at the top of the board. So I don't hate going to Danny Lee or Lucas Herbert or even both of them in the same lineup. Taylor Pendrick, that's the first guy you might want to consider not playing. He's also going to be chalky, just like Danny Lee and Lucas Herbert down there at $7,900. Pendrick, obviously a little bit more expensive, so there's a little bit more opportunity cost there as well. Plus, he doesn't have to be aggressive. He has a 3-shot lead over Danny Lee, 4-shot over Lucas Herbert, and then another 5-shot lead over the rest of the field. So even with some crappy conditions tomorrow, that's going to be a safe lead. So I don't expect him to be very aggressive, which tends to be a little bit problematic when it comes to Showdown. You need guys that can go out there and get you 3 or 4 birdies. And I'm not necessarily sure he's going to keep the foot on the gas pedal, especially with these type of conditions. For somebody to come from 12 under the whole way up to 17 under, especially in the conditions we expect tomorrow, would be a Herculean effort. If we take a look at the Vegas odds right now, Pendrick is actually minus money. He's just under the minus mark. He's minus 110 right now to win this golf tournament, which means he has higher than 50% chance of winning this golf tournament. So it's an interesting debacle, right? If you end up running sims and whatnot, from what I've seen to this point, what I was doing for the last half an hour, Taylor Pendrick has a less than 50% chance of being the optimal play. It's right around a 42% chance. I have him expected to be owned in 48% of lineups. So it's a very close metric right there. You either have to take a stand and play essentially 100% Pendrick tomorrow or 0%. At this point, I'm probably siding towards a 0% just because I'm going to be in a GPP contest. I'm looking for that top end upside. And if we take a look at the metrics, again, he's optimal a little bit less than what he's being owned. So for me, it's not always a one-on-one matchup with that. That's not always how I make all of my decisions here for DFS. But for Showdown, especially when I'm playing in a large field GPP, I'm trying to leverage ownership a little bit more than most. So that's the stance that I most likely take. As of right now, I'm not going to be playing Pendrick. I'm not in love with Patrick Rogers either. You can see somebody who's starting from 5 shots back. What I'd rather do with my salary is kind of take some scatter shots on some guys, maybe 6 or 7 shots back. I can go out, post a 3 or a 4 under round in these windy conditions and really get it done, because the truth is tomorrow, a lot of these guys at the top of the board, especially the guys that aren't used to windy conditions, are going to struggle. They're going to bleed 3 or 4 strokes to the field, and they're going to end up finishing outside the top 5 or even top 10. So while those placement points look really juicy at the beginning of the round tomorrow, especially for the guys that stack those lineups, by the end of the day, it could be a complete shit show. And that's just my warning to everyone out there taking some of these chalky picks. I don't hate taking one of these two here. I mean, you could even take both of them, like I said, especially with the conditions. But there's some guys down here to take some shots on. So let's talk about some of the guys I will be taking those shots on. Some of the guys that are going to win, Garrett Higgo is from South Africa. They're used to some windy conditions down there. And we've seen a lot of guys from Australia, guys from South Africa have success at this golf course in the past. And I think it has a lot to do with the setup off the tee. You're dealing with very small fairways. The rough isn't extremely penal or anything like that, but these are actually the hardest fairways to hit on the PGA Tour. They were last year. They are to this point of the year as well. So Garrett Higgo, somebody who's going to thrive in those type of conditions. He's starting well back. You know, he's not a threat to win this golf tournament or anything like that, but he is somebody who could go post a 3 or 4 under round tomorrow, and that could very well be the round of the day. And we're expecting some pretty shitty conditions. Round 1, when we had those really terrible conditions, Taylor Pendrick had the best round in the golf tournament at 3 under. So again, I'm expecting it to be a little bit easier than what we saw in those conditions, you know, probably a shot and a half easier. So if someone gets to 4.5, maybe 5 under par, that kind of thing. A few other guys I might consider. I'm not in love with any of these picks in this range up here, especially like the 10 to 12 under range. If I was going to take anyone, if I was really trying to target some placement points for tomorrow, Vincent Whaley's not a bad idea. You know, he's somebody who's probably not going to be as chalky as some of these options up top. You know, him being at that 12 under range, you know, it seems like a bigger gap than it really is. Vincent Whaley's also just head and shoulders better than the players around him. A guy who was on a 12 cut streak last year. He posted a few top 10 finishes. That's a lot more to say than a lot of the other guys in this range. Is just a much better player in terms of what we've seen to this point of his career. A few other guys, now we're getting a little bit farther back now. Patrick Reed's always good when you have hard conditions, good at getting up and down. Didn't really have to deal with it on day one. Obviously on Thursday, he teed off in the afternoon when it was a little bit easier. But again, we expect these conditions to be a little bit softer than what we saw on Thursday morning. So Patrick Reed there at $10,400. He's not likely to get much ownership. He's extremely expensive. A lot of people would much rather go to somebody like a Taylor Pendrick up here, or even try to fit in Pendrick and Rogers up here. But that's going to be extremely chalky. So it really depends on the type of contest you're playing. If you're playing cash tomorrow, then by all means, play these top 4 guys together. You're going to be duplicated with over half of the lineups, but in cash, that's what you're looking for. You're looking to just finish in the top 50%. So that kind of contest, I say go ahead, bombs away with those 4. In a GPP, people like Patrick Reed down here at 8 under are extremely interesting, right? If the average score tomorrow is going to be over par and you can catch somebody who gets, a 3 or a 4 under round, that is going to be more than enough to make up for those placement points. If you guys don't know, the scoring in Showdown, obviously the placement points aren't quite as weighted as they are for 4-round tournaments. That is cut in half, and the bonuses for birdies are doubled. So there's almost a 4 times difference in the difference between placement points and actual scoring between a 4-round event and then a Showdown event. So keep that in mind. A lot of people do not put that into their calculations or their projections. You can even go to a Matt Fitzpatrick. He played really well in those windy conditions. On day 1, ended up shooting even par, which is one of the best rounds of the day. I believe only Taylor Pendrick and one other person shot under par on Thursday morning. And then you had 2 or 3 guys at even par. One of them was Matt Fitzpatrick. Again, he's from England. He's obviously going to be used to some windy conditions. So $10,700, again, not going to be owned at all. A lot of people are going to be looking for that Taylor Pendrick or that Patrick Rogers up top. So $10,700, you could go there. Helmito Pereira, same kind of bucket, right? He's relatively expensive at $9,800. you might be seeing a little bit more ownership. There's just a huge psychology change between spending at the $9,000 range and the $10,000 range. People are much more apt to stick in those 4-digit type of price tags. So I don't hate going to Mito, just gonna be a little bit higher owned. Let's see some other wind players. So now we're starting to get to the true flyer range. Now we're looking for cheap guys at this point that can go out there, shoot 3 or 4 under par in the wind. And we know it's going to be bad conditions. So Luke Donald definitely pops. He had a very good day on Thursday morning dealing with those really bad conditions. He's helped himself in the golf tournament. You know, if he was one of those people that teed off in the afternoon, instead of him being 7 under, he's probably closer to 11 or 12 under and right in the mix to win this golf tournament. So I really like his form there. He's only $6,800. You like to see that. Seamus Power is a little bit expensive, right? So probably don't want to go to him. For him to get placement points at all at 6 under, he'd have to go post a 6 or a 7 under round. And I don't see that happening tomorrow. If you want to play him in GPPs because of his price tag, you can go do it. He's just not one of my favorite plays. Russell Knox is likely to be chalk, even though he's $8,100 and this low. Anytime you have windy conditions, people just love clicking on Russell Knox's name. And while it makes sense, again, it's just always a calculation of, is the steam behind him going to be worth it in terms of ownership leverage? And for me, as of right now, I have Russell Knox projected for 24.5% ownership, which is just too high for me. It's not something I'm going to be willing to go to. He was chalk going into the week. He's been chalk at a few of the Showdown slates up to this point, especially on Friday when we had some easier conditions. I'm not going to be on it. Let's see. Let's keep going down here. Let's find a few value plays we can go to for the slates. These, guys like Bazane Hoot, much too expensive. He hasn't looked very good to this point. So I don't think he's necessarily worth taking a risk on, as opposed to somebody like a Fitzpatrick or a Reed who's actually shown some good form. Let's see, who's cheap down here? Schwab's still expensive. That would have been a good spot if he was in the $6,000 range, that kind of thing. Let's see. So these guys are a little bit expensive. Hagee you could go to. So he's highly volatile. He's extremely aggressive. And if you guys remember on day one, he took it extremely low. It was really windy. Again, I'm expecting conditions that are similar to that afternoon wave. They had 15 to 20 mile an hour in that afternoon. And Hagee was somebody who took it to 6 under par. So if anybody's going to take it low, it's somebody who has already done it at this golf tournament. Isn't somebody who would be bad to target there. Let's see. We could go to Aaron Rye, $7,500 from England, used to those conditions over there on the European tour. Camilo Villegas, he didn't have a very good day on Thursday in the wind, but in the past has historically played well in windy conditions. Just look at his Honda Classic stats. There's tons of top 5s there. That course at PGA National can be one of the windiest venues in the entire world. And now that we're really getting down to the bottom here, these would be absolute flyer plays. One could be Sepp Straka, extremely aggressive. He's from Poland, so obviously used to some of those windy conditions over there on the European tour. And that might be it, guys. Ryan Armour, if you want to take an absolute flyer, he's at 1 over par. Really doesn't have anything to play with, but he's going to be completely unowned. Is a good course fit here. And in windy conditions has been all right in the past as well. So that's all we're going to have here for this Showdown picks video. If you guys enjoyed, make sure to like the video. We're going to be doing this for all the Showdown slates for next week. So we'll be doing a stream on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday evening. Depending on when the slate ends, it'll be about half an hour to 45 minutes after. So I can get all the prices in front of me. I can run some of my numbers, get my projections out there, and get you guys some of the best picks for the slate. So again, appreciate all of your viewership here on the channel, and I'll see you guys next week for the golf tournament.